So excited.
Here we go. In the end of the last recording, we talked about why we need to check our logical keys to see if they've changed. I just clicked on George's pizza order here, and if I change the size to 14, medium, size 14, whatever 14 means, I don't know where that came from. But anyways, if I change the size to medium, I don't need to do a duplicate record check here. I can't do it. I shouldn't do a duplicate record check, because if I ask, is there already a record out there for February 9th for George, whatever his ID number is, it'll say, yeah, it's there. And it'll go, nope, I can't save this. It's already there. So what we need is a technique to sense that one of the logical keys has changed, because if the logical key has changed, and there is an order for George on February 7th, I want to sense that, so I'm not making a duplicate out of another one. So I need some way to sense that those records have changed. This is all a business class problem, because the business class is the one that's responsible for checking to see if there's that's validation, right? The business class says, no, you can't save this because it's a duplicate. So it's the business class's job, and here's the technique that I'm going to share with you. In addition to my property, I'm now going to create a member, a private member, that is a string. And I'm going to put the underscore on it just to be consistent with all my other members that have underscores on it. I'm going to put an underscore on it. I'm going to call this orgKeys. These are the original values of all the logical keys. So my plan is, when I bring in a new record out of the database, I'm going to immediately grab the current values of the logical keys, stick them together, just concatenate them, and put them in this variable so I know what it was when I came in. Then when it's time to save, I'm going to compare the two to see if they're still the same. If they're still the same, we haven't changed the logical keys, I can skip the duplicate record check. If they have changed, I need to do a duplicate record check. So that's my plan. The next trick, if you will, is to go not into my data access records, but into the custom methods, and I'm going to create a new little mini function that is internal only. This ties back very well to what Jason was talking about this week with encapsulation. I've got secret private functions that do things that nobody on the outside even knows are going on. The outside world will know that I'm doing a duplicate record check. How I'm doing it, and all the tools and tricks and stuff, the GUI has no clue. That's part of what encapsulation is. So this is private. It's going to return a string as well, and I'm going to call it keys now. What are the current values of the logical keys is what this function is going to return. Method, excuse me. This method returns the concatenated values, current values of the logical key fields. It says returns. This is concatenating them for me. How many keys are there? Two. I have to concatenate. Just throw them right in a return statement. Now, in my case, I have a bit of a challenge because I have a customer ID, right? Take that and concatenate it to the order date. C# said, what are you talking about? This is a number, this is a date. You can't add one to a date, right? You learned that in Unit 4. And so it's confused. I'm going, it's a string. Quick fix. Here's one quick fix, by the way. Maybe not the best. This is an empty string, right? Now that this is a string, this plus sign means concatenate. And so now it says, oh, okay, I can tack a number on the end of an empty string, which makes the number as a string, and then add the date to it. That works. In Visual Basic 6, that was my only option. Here I got a little better option. What I'm going to do is just turn this into a string. And in case I need to do some some debugging, I want to look at this date, I'm going to do a toShortDate string on it. that does basically the same thing. The other version with the empty string in the front will not do a too short date string. You'll get this big ugly string with Greenwich Mean Time and date and hours and other stuff in it. But what I'm doing here is creating this ugly looking string. Let's say that the customer ID number for Volkergall is 137. This is going to take that number 137, concatenate it to a 4/23/2015, make this ugly looking thing, but it doesn't matter. Nobody's ever going to see it. We do this when we load a new record. We do it again when we save. We compare the two ugly strings and say, are they the same? As long as they're the same, we're good, and they will be. If one of the logical keys have changed, then the two fields will be different, and that's all I have to do. So that's my technique. Two things I have. One thing I need to worry about. When I concatenate, or not when I concatenate, when I construct, that's later. When I go get a record, that's what I'm looking for. Every time I get a record, after I'm done collecting all this important information, at this point, I need to set the orgKeys. Remember, orgKeys is my memory. What was it when I started? Well, I just brought it in. I just got done a billionth of a second ago, got done bringing everything in. So at this point, I say whatever the keys are right now. I don't have to reconcatenate them. Imagine poor Cian has to concatenate 3 fields and one of them is a date. And oh, geez. And who knows what Val's got to do. I only have to write it once. I put it in keys now. Whenever I want to say, take whatever's in the key, logical key values, I just call keys now. It does the work, sticks them together, done. This initializes it. Got to do a couple other things with it. We'll save that for a minute. Now, I know what it was when I came in. When I'm ready to save, I can look at it again. What happens when I save? I do one last validation, right? At the very beginning, it says, validate the fields one more time. I'm not going to save it if we got a problem. Duplicate record is a problem. Invalid fields does the heavy lifting here. We've already got some code in there. Is the ID number? No. Is the size? No. In other words, are the required fields missing? Everything else has to be correct. Has to be. Because if the user changed it, when they changed it, it went through the business class validated it. If it was wrong, we displayed an error marker and the user can't get out of the GUI. If it was right, it saved it. So the only thing we have to worry about is, did they fill in all the missing fields? As long as they filled in all the required fields, we're good. Here's the way I look at it. If the result variable is still the empty string, everything's cool. If we got to here and it's still the empty string, there's no errors, all the required fields are there, it makes no sense to me to check for a duplicate record if we're missing required fields. Makes no sense to me to check for duplicate records if we got a bad number of pizza pies. Doesn't make any sense. So my philosophy is, if invalid fields is good, if we get to here, everything's good. Then do your consistency check. Remember a consistency check, and again, it's not a Volker term, this one I did pull out of a book someplace. A consistency check says look at 2 or more fields to see if put together they make sense. Well, that's a duplicate record check. I'm basically saying, here's our record, the whole thing. Is it a duplicate? Consistency checks should be done last. So now, I want to put an if statement in here and say, if the logical keys have changed, if the original key values are not equal to keys now, So we call our friend keys now, say stick them together again now. Now I compare them now to what they were originally. If they're not the same, then check for duplicate. Remember how short circuit works. If this is false, they are the same. We don't check. This gets bypassed because of the short circuit. This is false. This is an and. I don't need to continue. It stops, which saves us connecting to the database, counting the number of records when we don't even care. If the keys have changed and it's a duplicate, let the user know. Let's put a couple of spaces to indent it a little bit. An order for this customer, actually I'd say this is a duplicate pizza order. I didn't do that. I apologize to the 1 o'clock class on the recording. This keyword duplicate is going to be important a little later. Could be important. You can put any error message you want. I could have said, and I think that's what I did in the other class, so I'm going to change it again. An order for this customer on this date already exists. An oil change, you know what the procedure is. An oil change for the Honda on 2 already exists. You can put that detail in here. In my case, it's tough because I don't have the customer's name. I'm inside the pizza order class. All I've got is an ID. I don't have the name. I could write some code to go get it and go out to the date, but just for an error message? Nah, I'm not going to do that. But you could be, the title, the DVD for a Blu-ray DVD for Princess Bride already exists. You can get a little more creative with your error messages if you wish. It's getting late. Maybe you just say, I already got that. This is a duplicate record. Stop it. Whatever error message you want. That gets tacked on to result. What happens with result? It gets returned to save the record. Save the record says, is it still the empty string? No. Throw an exception. Tell the GUI it's a duplicate. Done. That wasn't so hard. Well, yeah, but it wasn't so hard, but we had to create orgKeys. We had to create keys now. We had to write this function. We had to build the query. The code itself, and this is the beauty, I think, of methods and functions. If you write them well, the code to do the actual checking isn't hard. If the keys have changed and it's a duplicate, then yell at them. Not too bad. Does it work? My fingers are crossed. I got lucky in the other class. It worked first time. I was shocked. Okay, we want to do a new one because that's easy. Oh, no, we can't do a new one yet. When I do new, what are my orgKeys when I click on new? We never set them because we didn't go get a record out of the database. Uh-oh. So let's go fix that. And it's in my notes. It tells you to do this. I just forgot. So here's my constructor. When I do new, that's the constructor, I need to define orgKeys. I could do that, but I'm concerned because I just initialized the customer ID to null. What happens when I concatenate null to the order date? Remember, null is the black hole, just sucks the order date in, and we get an infinitely small, bigger, slightly infinitesimally bigger black hole. That's all. Would that work? It might. But adding something to null, concatenating something to null, I'm not real comfortable with that. So here's my solution. It started out with nothing. There's no date, there's no nothing, it's a new record. Even if there is a date, so what? We initialize it to the empty string, which means when I hit save, nothing's matching that. Nothing. And we'll do a duplicate check on a new record. So let's give that a shot now. New. Again, what's in orgKeys? The empty string. Today's date. Sounds good. No, not sounds good because we want to check for duplicates. So let's do Jody Knight, or we do date here for 2/13/12. First thing to check is, does it sense a duplicate for Jody Knight, I said. The only other thing that's required on this form is the size. So I don't have to go nuts filling all the rest of the stuff in because it has no effect on the duplicate check. And that's what I'm checking now. Everything else is tested weeks ago, right? I'm testing the duplicate check. Should get a message, right? Oh, cool. In order for this customer on this date already exists. Yay. So there's test number 1. Test number 2. Let's change the date. Do I have a Jody on the 14th? No. Should let it go. Nice. There's Jody on the 14th. That's 2 tests. Pretty good. Now we got to do the other test. What if it's an existing record? And I can use this because it just saved, right? It just saved. This is now in the database. It is no longer new. Uh-oh. What's my original keys? Did I change them? No, I did not. I made a new record for Jody on the 13th. The new record set the original keys to the empty string. Did I ever go out to the database and say, go get me a record? No, because Jody's record's still on my screen. The original keys are still nothing, even though I saved this and I now have an ID and I have a date, my original keys are out of whack. What my notes will tell you is you also need to go into button or into the save record routine here. And if everything is cool, reset the keys, the original keys, because I just saved it. So now I have a new set of originals. I think Val went, whoa, wow. I would have never thought of that. Yeah, well, that's why I'm giving it to you, because there's all these just little side effect things that you got to think about. And when you get to the JavaScript thing and you enter new and you've got these flags that are saying it's new and I'm updating, and you got to remember to turn them off. You got to remember to reset the original keys. And guess what? You're going to do the same thing. You can almost use a C# cookbook to write JavaScript because the cookbook gives you the steps. It doesn't give you the brand of sour cream you're supposed to use. It just says throw a dollop in. Same thing here. I think we got it now. Let's give that a shot. All right, we already tested the new, but I just mangled code, so who knows? I better test that again. New, and by the way, the other, notice that is that the one I added? No, it was the other one. It's gone, as it should be. So again, go to 2012, February 13th for Mr. Lopez. Large pizza, save. No. Okay, how about the 14th then? And I could change the name too, right? That's cool. He's added, I hit save. Now my original keys are these values, whatever his ID number is. So there he is. But now remember, there's another thing I need to test. What happens if I change an existing record to something that already exists in the database? It's already there. But I changed the logical key, didn't I? So it should sense that the logical key has changed and do the duplicate check and go, not doing it because he's already there on that date. Cool. Oh no, it was the 13th, but it's a different guy, like Ryan Braun. Uh-uh. It's already there. It won't do it. Some of the other class said, well, how do you know how do you know what to test for? Well, if you're listening in systems, we're doing it in analysis, right? Or the design, we're starting to even think about how are we going to test this before we even write it. So somewhere, in addition to all that monstrous documentation of use cases and tasks and prioritization and stuff, there's also a test plan. You, beyond the scope of this class. Right now, you just beat on it and make sure it works. But really, we ought to have a fixed list of steps. Here's how you test this feature. So that every time I change the program, I go through that test and say, I know it was way over there, but did it mess anything up over here? And test it again. A lot of your book talked about automated tests. We write programs that fill those in automatically so we don't have to sit there and type and pick combo boxes. And you write programs to throw data at this and say, you better get an error message. Oh, cool, I got an error message. If you change this, it better let it go. Oh, cool, let it go. So you don't have to run the tests over and over and over. You push a button and say, is everything still good? And your test program comes back and said, or not. I love it when a test program comes back and bad, stupid test program. You're wrong. Could be. It's a program. How do you know the test program isn't wrong? You don't. Somebody's got to figure it out. I got a bad result here, and I don't think I should. So this seems to be working. Oh no, we can't have Ryan Braun. So on the 13th, we should be able to pick Mr. Inzer. Spell it right. Save, and now we're good. Our program is now picky. Not doing any duplicate checks. I'm doing duplicate checks. You're not putting duplicates in my database. Cool. So now what? It's perfect. Give it to the user. Lost my notes. Closed them. Sorry. Okay, found my notes. While I was finding my notes, Val asked, I think, a question I want to put on the recording, and that's when you're at your job, don't you get so comfortable with the data that you get a pretty good handle on what the logical keys are, what the fields are? You're thinking a little too small. You're thinking Premier Products, Henry Books, 8, 10 tables. If you get a chance, ask Justin Walk or ask John Dunn how many tables they're dealing with. We're talking tens of thousands of tables. All right, maybe you have a set of 20 or so that you use most of the time and you're getting kind of comfortable with those, yes, but all of them, never. That's where that design comes in. That's why I say the ERD is so important, and keep the dictionary handy, the data dictionary handy, because you never know what might be in there. And what's scary to me is most of those companies don't have that. They don't have an entity relationship diagram. When you see the one that we built for Lions Camp, you'll see why. It's a measly 30, and I think it's 50 tables now. And I just said tens of thousands, right? And they've got a measly 50, and it's not, I'm amazed he had the patience to draw it. It's cool. Looks great. It's impressive. Oh, could never do that. That's what they said a year ago. That's the other thing to keep in the back of your head. These are people, the stuff that when you see that show, these are people who were just like you a year ago, and they're doing this stuff now. You will be doing that stuff. And Val, you saw it. It was relatively impressive. It was jaw-dropping to me, because I know what goes on behind the scenes. You see the front end, and that's the problem with this stuff. You write this program, and your friends go, yeah, that's lovely. And you're going, but it's cases, and it was monstrous. It took me almost all semester to write that thing. I go, yeah, well, that's great, but I can buy that on the store for free.
It was very in-depth.
Yes, it was. And theirs looks professional to the point where it's impressive. But it's amazing what's out there that you can get that for free, sort of. Not Lions Camp. Lions Camp loves that stuff because it's customized for them. You can't find Wisconsin Lions Camp app because how many people want it? One. To sell it for a big pile of money if you're going to make anything on it. So, that doesn't exist. All right, does that answer your question? He's kind of, sometimes you get used to certain things, but they're always going to throw in a new table at you. Next time you turn around, there's a new table coming at you and you've never seen it before. And now guess what? There's no ERD, there's no data dictionary, so hopefully your database administrator can help you figure out what the logical keys are. And if you say that, they'll go, what are you talking about? What logical key things, unless it's one of my graduates, which is possible. All right, they'll go, oh man, I remember that. You still calling it that? But what are you calling out there? I don't know. I have never seen it. Pick the fields that the programmer should be checking for duplicate values in. Primary key. No, it's auto number. I ain't going to do it. If it's not auto number, okay, yes, primary keys. But if it's auto number, now what? Then check the auto number. Make sure it's not. Oh, come on. No, I don't know what they call those things. I really don't. That's why I made up my own words. All right, let's see if we covered everything. Create the orgKeys. Yep. Define the variable. Write keys now to concatenate your logical keys. Might be 3, might be 4, might be 1. I don't think any of the databases we're doing work really very well with 1. Add the duplicates found query. We did that. We didn't do it in that order, but there's no reason we couldn't write this and that and then write this. It works fine. Then we wrote that, did that already. Then we did this in invalid fields. We said if the bad fields, mine's called result this semester, if result is still the empty string and the keys are not the same and it's a duplicate, then yell at them. Notice the shorter version here, right? And then what I almost forgot is we need to initialize orgKeys in 3 different places: in the constructor, in getRecord, in SaveRecord. And you have to do it after you've saved it. Otherwise, the values might not be quite right. And you want to save it, because remember, SaveRecord can cause its own problems and maybe throw an exception. So I put it at the end, right here. Test it. Should work. It did. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Okay. Here's another solution, though. With my pizza order, I've got so many fields that could be different that it could potentially be logical keys, right? It's a different size. It's the same size, but it's got different toppings. With cheese, everything could be part of my keys. A lot of tables, you might remember from the database design, a lot of tables, the logical keys are like just about everything. Maybe instead of putting the program in charge of saying, no, it's a duplicate, we put the program in charge of warning us that this might be a duplicate. In other words, we're warning the user now. I'm not going to demonstrate this because of the time crunch that we're under. It's extra credit in the unit part 5, unit 4, part 5 assignment, if you want to try to implement this. But what if I wrote my program so that duplicate records say, is it a duplicate? We send it back to the GUI, and the GUI says, wait. Let me check with the user. Maybe Volker was hungry today and wants a second slice of that same pizza on the same day. Couldn't we throw up a message box? I'm going to give you some clues here if you want to tackle the extra credit. Otherwise, you get a wimp on your evaluation sheet, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Where do we do that? Where's the problem? The problem is when I'm hitting save. If save record fails because it's a duplicate, it throws we catch the exception down here, say, nope, not saying it. What if we put a message in? What if we put an if statement in here that said, if this message right here contains the word duplicate, ooh, there's string processing. By the way, you don't have to do your string processing for CN. You don't have to keep, we're not going to turn that in. But that journal that you started that probably has 3 lines in it or more, 10, good for you. You don't need to turn it in, but that's a valuable skill set to have. Here's what I can do in C# to manipulate strings. Contains is one of them, right? Pretty sure. Does it contain the word duplicate somewhere? If it does, then we've got a duplicate. I can say if it contains duplicate, throw up a message box. Excuse me, Mr. User, Ms. User, I have a potential duplicate here. Are you sure you want to save this? And if they're a smart pizza order taker person, they say, hang on a second. Hey, you on the other side of the counter, you been here today? Yep. Cool. Yes. Save it anyways. No, I wasn't here. I was here 2 days ago. No. Okay. No. It's a duplicate for some reason. Why is it a duplicate? But we can ask. The user, the human, can go look at the list of orders and say, what do you mean it's a duplicate? And then we can give the user the opportunity, are you sure you want to save this because it looks like a duplicate? If the user says yes, then things get a little tricky because the GUI has to tell the business class, the user, the human, who's the all-powerful, said, do it anyways. We have to communicate that. More clues in my notes. I create another flag in the business class that says, allow duplicates. Actually, it doesn't say S, does it? It says allow, that flag means allow this one duplicate. The GUI says, hey, business class, allow duplicates, and then save again because this time it will go through. Those are your clues. The notes tell you, you got to allow duplicates, you got to set it, get it. These are places you got to mess with it. So that's another approach. You get the human involved. You don't just say no, Volker can't order pizza again today. You allow the human to override and say, go ahead, enter it. He said he was here before, or I looked, he was here before, he ordered something different, or he was here before and I remember, and he's here again, let it go. Put it in the database, and now we have 2 Volker Galls on 423, but that's because he was here twice and a human has verified that. The program can't, unless we throw time in, but the program can't. So this is for reference, if only if time allows. Talked about it. And it's only a page and a half, and then it gives you most of the clues with the few that I gave you. You might be able to work that out. And dun dun dun, there we are, time for lab part 5. The other class decided they don't want it due tomorrow.
Okay.
We picked next Friday, which makes sense because, again, we're running out of Fridays, so we're running out of days, period. May 13th, CN asked me, is the last day of the semester, last day of this class. Technically is the 12th, but I'm such a nice guy and in such a great mood and don't have anything else to do that I will accept assignments up to 11:59 p.m. on the 13th, the Wednesday, even though you don't have class that day. I'll keep, and updates, just keep shipping them. It's the worst day of my life, the last day of the semester, because sometime around, I'm usually asleep, but sometimes around 11 o'clock, it's just, here. It's all the updates I could get done. Take them, give me whatever I can get. And the next morning I wake up with this storm in my email, but that's okay.
That is at Christmas, we calling you Mr. Grinch.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, it happened in programming logic beginning, right? Mm-hmm. And QA cards have helped. I get less of a snowstorm. So what's left? It's perfect. It works. It's a credible program now. That's another new word, credible. CRUD, right? Create, read, update. It creates new records. We insert it. It's even smart enough to check for duplicates. Cool. We can read existing records, put them in the grid, put them on the details side. We can update it. We can change data, save it, and check for duplicates there, and we can delete. It's ready. Sort of. Part 6 is no longer about databases. And that's why I don't think it's going to take much longer than Tuesday, I hope. Part 6 is not about databases. It's about the user experience, UX. New term in IT. I say new, that means it's less than 10 years old. I won't say about 5 years. Madison Area Technical College, getting ready to have a UX associate degree. You learn how to make sure this is as usable and friendly as it can be. Like tab order, right? Like colors are reasonable. I'm not trying to put orange on purple or whatever. I've seen some fun ones. But there's other user experiences here. Watch. Mushrooms. Oh, wait, what did John order? What happened to my mushrooms? Oops. And if it was click, 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 oh, wait, what does Jane do? And then I lose it all. That's not good. Not a good user experience because all my inputs just got trashed. What we're going to do in the next unit is as soon as one of these things changes, oh, anything? Yep, anything, we're going to disable this grid. No, you can't change to a different record because you changed things. The save button lights up because now that you've changed something, you might want to save it. The cancel button lights up because it was off before. Why would the save button be there if I haven't made any changes? We're going to improve the user experience by disabling stuff that you shouldn't mess with, that shouldn't be available to you, by disabling cancel and save buttons until you make a change. Ooh. Any one field changes. How do we do that? Exactly the same way. We do an orgKeys field. We concatenate the whole blooming thing together. And then anytime anything changes, anything, we compare the org fields to the fields now. And if they're different, we turn on the save button, turn on a cancel button, do this thing, and do 60 things to make the user or prevent the user from doing goofy stuff. You got menus in your program? And we should disable menus too, right? Oh, not a problem. I'll show you how. So that's part of what we're going to do. Here's another user experience that isn't too cool. What's this? There's nothing in the grid. Who's this? That's Eve. Why is he here? Shouldn't be. I'm going to write some code to say if this grid is empty, wipe those out. Hide them completely. They're gone. An empty space on that side of the screen when that happens. I don't want to say new and put empty fields here. I don't want that either. The new button stays. They can click new and say, oops, I need customer XX. I guess I got to add it. So that's another thing we're going to do. What else are we going to do? Oh yeah, when I hit save, I get this annoying message box that interrupts my processing. So I can't use my pizza program right now. That's not bad, right? But I've seen many programs like Microsoft Word. Does it give you a message box saying save done? No. Usually it just goes on its way and doesn't do anything. I've seen other programs, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to put a status bar down here. That'll be new. We haven't used status bars. Some of you experimented with them. When you hit save, I'm going to put a message in the status bar that says save complete. And after 5 seconds, it's going to go away. So it doesn't clutter the screen with that message. And it doesn't have to be in a status bar. It just puts it in a common place. So the message box that says save complete goes away. We show a little message. After 5 seconds, we figure you caught on. We take it away. My users like that. They get the feedback, but it doesn't get in their way. And so that's all user experience stuff. Is there anything else? Enabling, disabling buttons and the grid. And there's some of the code we got to write. And the sensing changes. Stick it all together into one big record. How do we sense those changes? Hide the details when there's nothing. Display save status and wrap it up. When I hit X, whoops, I didn't save my changes. Can't tell you how many times I've done that. In other programs, I go close. Shouldn't it come up and say, excuse me, you made change, don't you want to save those? How do we know if they made changes? Look at the save button. If it's lit up, they made changes because we will have already written that code. All we have to do is look at the save button. If it's lit up on the way out, you go, excuse me, you got changes to save. In our case, we're not going to let them out. Microsoft Word will say, do you want to save those, yes or no? We could. I'm going to make them go back and either cancel their changes or save. So that's part 6. There's a few things that I'm guessing a couple hours is my hope. And then you got a pretty professional looking program whose techniques you can steal in the future for your own process. Or in Val's case, she wants 3 or 4, 5, 6, 10 more forms. But guess what all those forms do? Same stuff. Just got to figure out how to link them together. And that's not so bad. But each form has its own class. Each form has its own validation. Each form checks for duplicates. It has a grid. At least in my programs, they all look very, very similar. And that's good, because then users know what to expect. And it's easy for you to write because you can steal a lot of code from previous ones. And the logic is all there. And oh yeah, I got to remember to turn this flag off and here and there. It is so common. When I wrote the first version of Lions Camp, I was doing it over and over and over. I was forgetting stuff that was hidden secretly. And I made a checklist. And every time I forgot something, I'd slide it into the checklist. Single spaced, 1 command per line, 2.5 pages. To basically build a new form in the class and the validation and the deletes and the duplicate checks and all the rest of the stuff. Just the standard stuff. And then every form is a little different, but at least it got me on the right track. I still have that hiding someplace. It went completely out of whack when we went to the web. So that's where we're at. Get an hour of lab today, and then Tuesday, Thursday, probably the following Tuesday, all lecture, but I will not lecture 3 hours on Thursday. That's too much for everybody. So you'll have an hour of lab next Thursday, but in the meantime, a lot of your work's got to get done outside of class. You got to attack me when I'm not doing Dean stuff to get questions asked and answered. Poor Sam and Andy asked me a question on Tuesday via email. I found it today. It's Thursday. Oops. I don't want to wait that long. If you don't get a response from me within a day or a half a day, or just feel free to say, "Did you see my email?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I'm getting to it." But last night I was getting to that kind of stuff and I missed theirs. So let me know. I would try to get you answers because I know I'm tough to come by. And then I come in here and I lecture at you the whole time. How do you get your questions answered? Do what Nathan does. You come sneaking into the web programming or web data management class and see if I'm bored. Enough recording.